everybody, it's Dana and welcome back to the channel. We are on day 4 of the holiday card series and today we're using products from Pinkfresh Studio. We're using the Deck the Halls washi tape. This washi tape is amazing, you guys. And we're also going to use the coordinating die and later we'll use the stamp set. So I am a little bit behind in my holiday card making. I know, I made the videos and then I'm the person who's behind. But I chose to use this washi tape because this is going to allow me to make really beautiful and quick holiday cards. Because using the washi tape, all the coloring is done for me. I don't have to stamp anything. I don't have to heat emboss the image and I do not have to color it. That is what is so wonderful about this washi tape from Pinkfresh Studios. Now, if you head to the website, you'll see a bunch of images that have this washi tape that you can use for not your holiday cards or not your traditional cards, but maybe birthday cards or something like that. So I'm using for my paper, I'm using Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock, and I'm just placing this directly onto that paper. And then all I have to do is lift up the washi tape and trim off exactly where I need. And this amount is going to give me at least 2 cards that we'll have today. All I have to do now is just turn this around and trim off the excess. Now remember, this 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper is not going to fit in my die cut machine. So I will have to just cut this in half. But again, I'm making sure to cut right between the 2 panels of the washi tape. And not getting close because remember, I have the dies that are going to go with this gorgeous washi tape. All right, I have that split in half. And then I'm just going to go ahead and burnish in that washi tape just to make sure it has really good adhesion to that cardstock. I don't want that to pull up when I go to die cut it. Now, what I love about these dies is that it just doesn't cut out one image on the washi tape. So as you can see here, this one die will cut out 3 images on this washi tape. And that is fantastic. I think this is such a brilliant way to make cards by having the dies together and cutting out a cluster of something instead of having individual ones. So I will line this up and then I am going to hold this down with a little bit of my tape here just to hold it in place. Now I can go ahead and pick up the next die and the next die is going to cut out all of these pieces here. So it's really 2 dies, but you're getting all of these images cut out at once, which is fantastic. You don't have to fiddle with each little individual image. These dies are brilliantly made and I just applaud Pinkfresh Studios for doing this. Now I can go ahead and run this through my die machine. I'm going to do both panels and then I am going to have a ton of already colored images to make cards with. So today I'm only going to make 2, but I'm going to have plenty left over to make more cards. Now for my card bases, I decided to use a nice poppy red color and I'm going to use the candy apple ink just to go around the edges of that red cardstock. This is just going to give me a little bit of a darker color around the edges. And it just, when you do this to cardstock, you guys, it really does just elevate it just a little bit. It doesn't take a long time, but it's really a tone on tone process. But when you do it, it really does make whatever image you're placing on this really stand out because you have those darker edges around the corner. So just remember to use that. If you just have a flat piece of white, colored cardstock rather, just go ahead and tone the edges of it down. And look how pretty that looks already. It just gives the paper a little bit of depth. Now I'm going to use a oval die and I'm going to cut out the middle of one of these red cardstocks, just the center, because I want to have like a little window so I can place some paper behind it. Now for this card, I'm using a top fold A2 card base and I want to show you why I cut out the window. So I have my pieces here, my wreath pieces, and these I guess are called reef swags, maybe? I think that might be what they're called. And I can see the white cardstock in the middle. I'm going to layer this up so it makes one really full wreath. I think that's very pretty, but I wanted to bring in a little bit of that gold. So I think what I want to do is put a piece of sparkly gold cardstock behind it. I think that this looks so pretty and it really draws your eye towards the center. All right, I'm going to go ahead and glue on my pieces or my piece of cardstock that is going to go in my window. And this is going to be that beautiful gold sparkle. And again, this is going to draw your eye directly to the wreath and right to the center. Now, because this is a textured paper, I am going to put a little bit of a paperweight on it just for a couple seconds in order for that glue to adhere to that sparkle paper. So I'm going to go ahead and lift this off very gently. And now I know that that paper is going to be secure in the back. Now I can go ahead and put my wreath back on and look how pretty this is. I just feel like just that little bit of gold behind that window really does pull in the gold that is in that washi tape. And if I did not mention that earlier, the washi tape is embossed in gold, which really just makes your cards so pretty, especially for the holiday season. So I went ahead and I glued down that first piece. Now, if you wanted to, you can totally leave it like this. I think it's gorgeous, but I wanted to have a full wreath. And because that washi tape allows me to die cut out these larger pieces, plus all the other pieces that I still have left to continue to make cards, this is going to make my last minute crafting so much easier. So I can go ahead and lay that on top. And look how we created a beautiful wreath card. And I did not do a bit of coloring. That is all the washi tape. All right, I'm going to go ahead and set this card aside before I put on the sentiment. So let's set that aside and we're going to start working on the other panel. For this one, I wanted to add some splatter in the background. So I'm using my Yuli watercolors. These are my favorite watercolors. And I cannot thank Christina Warner enough for introducing me to these colors. These are all of her Christmas colors, and they are absolutely gorgeous. So what I did was I went ahead and added a little bit of water to it. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring in a paintbrush to activate that color. This watercolor is so pretty, you guys. I used it in a card series, or my card series, I believe it was last year. So I'll have the link to my card series from last year below. But you can also find that I did a couple cards with this watercolor also for Hero Arts. And you'll be able to see that on my video profile as well. So as you can see, I'm putting on a little bit of the splatter of red, and then I'm going to go in and add 2 shades of gold. And like I said, you guys, this watercolor is so sparkly. It works wonders on black cardstock as well. So you just don't have to use it for the splatter effect. It is definitely a gorgeous, gorgeous watercolor, shimmer watercolor that you can use for even calligraphy. It's absolutely stunning. So I'm just going to make sure that I get enough of this gold because this is really going to be the only piece to my background. And remember, I did already darken up those sides a little bit, but this is just going to give me a little bit of shimmer just to add some creativeness to the background. Now, once I have all of this down, I'm going to set this aside so it can dry. But look how gorgeous that is. Oh, it's my favorite. I'm telling you guys. So now I need to work on my sentiments. So for the oval that I cut out from my first card, I'm going to use that for my second card. So I didn't waste any cardstock here. And those little pieces that I die cut out from the washi tape, I'm going to use that to just give me a little swag around the top and the bottom of this oval. So as you can see, I do make sure to place down some of the greenery that I plan to use. Then I place down my sentiment, and then I'm going to use my magnet to hold the first part down so I can line up the second part. This is going to allow me to make sure that my sentiment is going to fit in the middle without any of the greenery covering it up. I'm just going to shift that just a little bit and it looks perfectly centered. And now I can close down my Misty lid. And now I don't need those placeholders anymore. I can get rid of those decorative pieces. They were just sitting there for me to line up my sentiment. Now, I did want to heat emboss this, so I am going to make sure I treat this with my anti-static tool. I'm just going to brush that all over, and I'm going to do this in white, but I am not going to use Versamark for this. I love you using Hero Arts Unicorn ink anytime I'm doing white heat embossing. And I'd like that for several reasons. One, the white is already going to be there when I add my embossing powder. And then also, because this ink takes a little bit to dry, it's not going to dry quick on me because this is more of a pigment ink, and the pigment ink takes a little bit longer to dry. So I did stamp that a few times because I want to use light pressure on here. The sentiment is rather small and I don't want my sentiment to bloom out. But I did want to make sure that I had a really good base of white before I started to pour on my embossing powder. The embossing powder I'm using today is also from Hero Arts. And I'm going to sprinkle that on there, and then I can tap off any excess. And we're going to have a gorgeous little sentiment here. Now, all I have to do is heat set this. And I do like to heat set from the front and the back of my images. It just allows the embossing powder to melt a little bit quicker without bowing my paper too much. So now I have a sentiment for my first card. And now I need one for my other card. So this time I'm just going to grab the 'Tis the Season sentiment. This sentiment and the other one is also from the Deck the Halls stamp set. So I'm using Deck the Halls stamp set. I'm using the coordinating dies and I'm using the washi tape. The ink I'm going to use for this is going to be that candy apple ink from Pinkfresh Studios, because that's the ink that we blended on around our panel. So I know that this red is going to match. I will stamp this twice because, again, these are very thin lines and I do not want to press too hard on this because they'll kind of like bloom out. And when I mean bloom, that's when you press too hard and it kind of makes your sentiment look a little bit wavy or a little bit like you smushed it down. So if you're having that issue, just make sure to tap a little bit lighter and go ahead and stamp it, 1, 2, or 3 times. And you'll get a more crisp sentiment without that like distorted kind of look. Now I went ahead and I used the coordinating dies with this, and then I can go ahead and die cut that out. Now we can go ahead and start building up our cards. So here's our first panel. And I did trim this down so that there was just a little bit of white, but I'm also going to pop this up on my card panel. This big roll of tape, I believe, is from scrapbook.com. Sorry about that. And I like this because, well, two things. It's a really big roll. And I can also cut this down to strips. Or if I needed a thicker piece at one time, this works just as well for that. But as you can see, I can cut down this wider. I want to say this might be, I'm not even going to say it. I'll just link it below. I think it's 3 inches across. I'm not sure, inch and a half, something like that. I'll make sure to list all the products below in case you guys want to pick up this roll, but it is freaking fantastic. I absolutely love it. All right, I can go ahead and place that down on there, and then I can go ahead and flip this over and put this on the card base. So as I pull this back, I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching this tutorial as well as the ones I've done for this holiday card season. I love doing these holiday cards. They can be stressful at times, but I do enjoy doing it because sometimes it just gets me out of a rut and makes me have to create. So look how gorgeous this card is, you guys. And we did no coloring. Nobody needs to know that, right? We did 0 coloring on this card. Now, I'm going to use the "'Tis the Seasons" to put onto this card because it's going to fit directly into the center of our wreath. I did die cut this out twice. I die cut it once to have the sentiment in red, and then I also die cut it in white just to give this a little bit more stability, as well as to have this just raised up very slightly over the window. So if you're doing any kind of sentiment over an open area, like a window like this, you do not necessarily have to put any adhesive over the window part. You just need to put your adhesive on the areas that are going to be on the outside of it. So as I flip this over, you're going to see I only have to put it where the end of the seasons is and the "'tis" is, because everything else is going to flow over that. So I'll just put a little dab there and a little dab there. And then I can use my tweezers to help me line this up. And then again, I'm only pressing over the area that is actually touching the wreath. And look how pretty this is. Now, I will say when you're using the washi, because it has a slick surface, you might need to add a little bit of more glue just to make sure that it stays secure. I'm just going to put a weight on this and just let it hang out for a second. To finish up this card, I'm just going to add a few white gel marks on here, like faux stitching. I didn't want to add anything else to this card. I think just adding a little bit of this faux stitching is all this card needed. Now, if you wanted to, you can add a little bit of that gold splatter to the back of this, like we did on the other card. But I just feel like this didn't need a lot to it. So that is going to finish up our first card. And for our second card, I'm using a white card base for this as well. And now that piece is dried back, and you can see just how gorgeous that splatter is. I cannot recommend these Yuli watercolors enough. I just think they're absolutely beautiful. Now I can go ahead and place that down onto that white card base. And already it's already looking festive. I love this card. Now I have my centerpiece that's going to go right in the middle, but I am as well going to lift this up. And I'm also going to use that large foam tape again. So remember I said this comes in handy because it's a thicker piece, right? All I have to do is just cut off this piece and it's going to fit right in the area that which I need instead of having to put a lot of foam dots on there. So I can just go ahead and cut off that larger piece. It was just a tad bit too long. So I'm going to grab my scissors and trim that off. And then this is going to be the centerpiece to the card. But remember I had all of those extra pieces left over. That's when it's going to come in handy to use the smaller pieces that we die cut out. So all I'm going to do is just line this up around my sentiment and glue these down in place. Having a pair of tweezers is very handy when you're doing this because it allows you just to get the glue where you need it and line up your element right on the bottom of that oval. And again, I'm just going to overlap these just like I did the wreath part. I'm just going to tuck little pieces in here. And remember, I still have a ton, like a ton left over that I can make either holiday tags or I can put these on a gift box if I want to, just for a little bit of an embellishment. But it looks so pretty. And again, it's all the work of the washi tape. Now I went ahead and adhered the other pieces to the top, and then this will go right in the center. And look how pretty that looks with all of the splatter around it. Now all I have to do, I'm just going to try to adjust this just a little bit to just cover up some areas a little bit better. And then I can go ahead and flip this over and put this onto the card panel. And again, I'm just giving this just a little bit of lift, just like I did my other card, but none of this should cost me to have to pay more in shipping costs. So just keep that in mind when you're using some of your thicker elements on your cards that you might have to pay a little bit more in shipping. But here we have it, you guys. We have two more holiday cards down, and we have a few more that are coming your way. I hope I have made you guys happy today. Make sure to comment, share, and like, and I will see you guys in another video soon. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.